11, the Halloween episode with Matthew Myers.
Actually, it might be 12. I'm stupid.
No, because the other one was 10B. Remember, it was like the second part?
Oh, well, I just did one with Hector, too, so,
Oh.
Yeah, that was my bad.
You know what? So scratch that. Welcome to Sierra Nova Comics Podcast. This is episode 12, the Halloween episode, Matthew Myers. I just realized, technically, it's episode 13, and it's the Halloween one, so that's kind of a cool one.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
that is
yeah.
pretty cool.
That is cool.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Definitely. So for anyone out there, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Well, my name's Matthew Myers. I've been a horror writer for a couple years, written for the websites The Bloodshed, Attack from Planet B, and done numerous single pieces for other sites. And I got into screenwriting a couple years ago and was trying to sell some horror spec scripts. And I wrote a screenplay called Down By Kontact. And it was something that I really liked, and I had a couple offers on it, and from independent film companies in Canada, and it was something that I decided I was going to keep and produce into a film myself. The issue was I didn't know much about filmmaking at all at the time, and I realized how much money it was going to cost both pre and post-production, so I decided to adapt the medium into a comic. And I have it here, and I'll show you. Everybody can see it here.
Yep.
And how it came to be is I was searching for I'll talk about how it was written. Basically, it's inspired by the works of George Romero. Night of the Living Dead mostly is its biggest inspiration, but there's some nods in it to Dawn of the Dead as well, and Tales from the Dark Side. And I wanted to write a story that paid homage to classic horror and pre-code horror and the stuff that really influenced me as a writer and as a horror fan in general. Started out, I didn't know where exactly I was going to go with the script, so I just started free writing different scenes and wound up piecing it all together. I didn't know much about character development at the time, so I basically created a period piece with a chaotic situation with a bunch of friends that were on their way to compete at an arcade for a Mortal Kombat tournament, and then all hell breaks loose with a zombie apocalypse starts right in the middle of it.
Very nice. Greg, you got the, let's see, wasn't it? Yep, that kind of covers that question too.
Yeah.
Let's see. What we got here? All right, Greg, you can take the next one.
Byron. Baltimore. Oh, yeah, so, the science.
Pardon the sirens in the background. I live in Baltimore City. And I'm also, for everybody talked about before, I'm broadcasting from, hold on, just got a notification. I'm broadcasting from Edgar Allan Poe's gravesite. Little shout, you can see here. That's a pretty good shot. Right, this bush right here, his grave is right behind it.
Very cool.
Yeah, walk over here.
What?
Yeah, there it is here.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be very fitting considering the subject, and plus it's 5 minutes from my house and I have 4 cats. I didn't want them jumping around on the screen, them being the star and not me.
Actually, talking about cats, you have a Kickstarter coming up at some point soon.
I do.
Marbles the Cat. So what is that all about?
This is a switch for me. I've had this idea for a while, and I've been trying to get as much completed as I can with actually starting it, because I wanted to finish the Down By Kontact project first. Basically, it's a sci-fi adventure. It's a sci-fi adventure I wrote about a rescue cat in a futuristic setting where he's protecting his family from a race of alien, miniature alien robots that are invading his property. It's an 8-page comic, front and back, so it'll be 16 pages in length. So it's relatively short, but it's cool. And I'm planning on donating 10% of all comic sales to help the National ASPCA. And I have some really cool perks for getting the public involved, including with that much space, with the comic being short, I want to be able to have people's cats in print. There's going to be pledges to actually become the other cats in the, use your likeness for your pet in it with the other cats, even be Marbles himself, or the family dogs. So we're not leaving anybody out. The marketing reach I already have for it is pretty huge because making this comic, Down by Kontact, I raised $1,605 in 30 days on Kickstarter. That was the first Kickstarter I did. I did it all by myself. I had no idea what I was doing for about 3 weeks in, but it still did pretty well. With this one, I'm going to have a huge reach because the cat groups on Facebook have already given me permission to post in there and just having everybody share. There's 50,000 people in each cat group, and I'm a member of 8 of them. So this is going to be good. This is going to be a huge reach. It's for a good cause, and it's in the concept photos and everything for these robots look really awesome. It's there's one that has like its brain in its stomach, kind of like Krang, and then it has hoses coming out of its body like into other parts of it to be able to function. There are other miniature ones have little ray guns and blasters similar to like the Invaders episode of the Twilight Zone. They'll have different things, and because it's a futuristic setting with the environment, Marbles will have some superpowers too. He's going to have a bionic tail, be able to shoot lasers out of his eyes, and also shoot orbs of light out of his claws, similar to like the bolt shot in Halo. So he's going to have some weapons to be able to take these things down and bust up their ship and get them out of there. It's the script has been received real well, and looking for probably a January launch after the new year.
That's cool.
That's awesome. It's funny. I got like so many different ideas. It sounded like a combination of like toy, because you said they're little robots that are attacking.
Yes.
So it's like cat-sized kind of thing, like little tiny things.
Yeah, they're about a foot tall.
Yeah,
Something for a cat. I mean, they're armed too, but with Marvels having special powers, I mean, it's a sci-fi superhero adventure with animals, really, is what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like what's it called? That toy soldier movie with the
with the military intelligence aside the toy dolls. Yeah, that was fantastic.
I was thinking it was like that meets like Tom and Jerry.
Right.
Like the shenanigans of just a cat trying to fight off toys, essentially, but they're aliens.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. It was something I had. I didn't want to do horror for my next comic, but I wanted to keep it in the genre of either science fiction, something with a little bit more action, because this one is methodical and creepy, and I wanted to do something with a little more upbeat, reach a bigger market, and try and really establish myself as a legit comic writer and producer. So I figured if I wrote something like this, and at the same time, obviously, I have 4 rescue cats myself. I love animals. I do everything I can to help them. This is going to be a really good plan to help the National ASPCA, also help BARCS, which is BARCS. It's the Baltimore Rescue Center, which has really good partnerships with some of the pet stores in Baltimore where you can adopt cats there. So they have them at the shelter. Once they're okay and have all their shots and everything, they're actually in the pet store for free adoptions. So it's a really good program, and I'd like to find a way to get them involved as well.
Yeah, that's incredible, because it's very important, like for indie creators, to realize that you can't just have everyone be your audience. It has to be a very specific niche that you can get into. Like everyone knows about superheroes, and that's why people can like Marvel. But if you're not already established like that, the way that you really build a big audience is starting very, very small and making sure that whoever it is that you're catering to, they love your work. So that's definitely very cool. It's very niche, and it still sounds interesting. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the project develop. I have some concept photos, like I said. I got a couple people that I'm working with. I'm surprised this is when I reached out to some artists about it, because I haven't selected one yet, but there's a lot of people that want to be involved and want to do concept photos for the Kickstarter, with hopefully being chosen. So I'm actually have people artists competing to be a part of this project. That's how I know it's going to be big. Very exciting.
It's actually very cool. One thing, I don't know if you've thought about this, but if one of your reward levels is something like a poster or like a print of one of these.
He does have prints. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're doing the prints, then what you can do is if you give options on different artists' prints, so you could also figure out based on which prints get requested most,
right?
For which artist to go with. Yeah,
that's a good idea. That's a good idea. What's nice about doing Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general is I can do pre-sales on everything to see what the actual budget is of how many people I can get involved too. Because, like you said, I also like to have the option to do variant covers. I would like to produce more content inside with selling advertising, which I was able to do with Down By Kontact. I sold advertising space inside the book at the end, and that worked out well to getting the cost together for the printing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We actually talked about we've been talking about marketing, just like you and me,
Right.
a lot. And you mentioned Twitter like as one of your major platforms they use. So like
It really is.
Yeah.
More than Instagram, Twitter for me has been. I have 1,800 followers on there, and Twitter for me with sharing media, horror-related artwork, marketing artists, and different things of in one genre has been really valuable because I get a lot of retweets. Therefore, it gets out more within the same market, and it's a really good way to target your audience because I have a lot of comic creators, a lot of comic readers that follow me. Also, horror fans, obviously, because I'm a horror writer, but there's a lot of people out there that started following me when I was writing for The Bloodshed. And when I was writing for The Bloodshed, I was in charge of Twitter. That's what got me into it, and actually using it to spread media. And when you target media like that, it gets more in front of an audience on Twitter than it does on Instagram. Instagram's more for pictures. You know, you can do comics and artwork on there, but you don't have the reach as you have with people on Twitter because so many different people are following you that aren't necessarily looking at those hashtags. And if I was able to get most of my Kickstarter pledges outside of my friends and family, or all came from Twitter. It really didn't come from the Facebook marketing I was doing. But, you know, the hashtags are pretty much the same for art, for comics. And, you know, when you start showing and promoting other people's work, they start doing the same for you. And it's kind of like indie creators got to stick together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons we started the whole indie revolution. We wanted to amplify everyone's voice because you might know someone who likes someone else's comic and they might know someone that would like your comic. And it's better than trying to compete against each other because people like different things. So
yeah, absolutely.
There's no reason to try to corner any market and not let anyone in because honestly, like specifically with indie creators, the only way that you can get large enough voices by all working together.
Somebody told me one time, most places that have a Walmart have a Target right across the street. They open up next to each other because they both wind up doing better. And if you think about it, even though they are competitors to the sense, they're not trying to undercut each other to the point where I'm going to put you out of business. How about we both stay here so people can come and enjoy both? And I think in the art community, and the same with music, when you have a music label with a bunch of different bands that play the same stuff on it, they can go on tour together, split those expenses. They can be on the same album label together and produce songs together, and it just cuts a lot of the nonsense of the business out and the expense-wise, and then you're also able to be stronger and reach a bigger market. And it's the same thing with indie creators with comics. That's one thing about your site, which I like about how it's subscription-based. I think a store where people could sell hard copies of their comics in your forum would be really good because anybody that has their comic on there, and of course I'll have mine up there, anybody that has it on there is going to push it so other people can see their stuff as well as everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting fact, like the Walmart Target. It makes sense because not everyone who shops at Walmart would shop at Target and vice versa. So by sitting in an area, you're drawing people there in general because there's more than one store, and then you naturally divide into wherever you want to go, as opposed to having completely separate parts of the city. So it's very no, that makes sense. That's kind of
I never thought about it that way until someone gave me that example myself, and that's why I like to use it because it's true. It's when you have everybody that's in one thing sticking together and putting out content together where everybody can see a whole bunch of content, everybody just sells more and does well. That's the same principle with Comic Cons in general. All the people that are going there are obviously comic fans. Everybody that doesn't have a huge web presence can at least get into a Comic-Con, get a table for an affordable price, and they're able to get their workout in front of a lot of people and a lot of foot traffic through. This is basically the same thing, except it's on the internet.
Yeah, it's actually funny. That's actually exactly how like a mall works. Typically, there's like a Sears, which, and I know they're all closing, which ironically is going to cascade to other malls closing as well. But
Right.
basically, like the Sears, the Macy's, the big department stores are typically, there's a name, I can't remember the name for it, but it's the the anchor store. Without that store, none of the other businesses will ever get foot traffic. In fact, most of the time, like a Sears or a Macy's, they don't even pay for their area of the mall. They're actually giving it for free, knowing that it's going to bring foot traffic to the rest of the mall.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ends up happening is if one of those stores leaves, because it's like the Comic-Con, it's like the main attraction. If that leaves, none of the little stores get anything either. So, but it's interesting because you might go to the mall because of something else that's there and still end up in the Sears or Macy's. And so it's still mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you look at, like you said about malls closing, even back in the day when Kmart was still pretty powerful, and Sears and everything, once a Sears leaves a mall, it just becomes really bad. Everything else starts to fold, and it becomes basically a dirt mall. You know, it's there's nothing in there. But I have seen a lot of these malls when I went home to Pennsylvania, where I'm actually from. There's this mall in Whitehall next to the Lehigh Valley Mall. The Lehigh Valley Mall is pretty standard, very commercial, very big, a lot of restaurants, 4 floors. But the Whitehall Mall up the street has always been a dump. And what's kept it alive for years was even in the late 90s up to like 2005 were the 2 arcades that they had in it. And now it's the 2 comic book stores because nobody will rent anything out of there anymore. I think there's like 3 stores in the entire mall, but they still keep it open. But they have multiple comic stores in there because the rent's so cheap that they can afford to set up shop there, which I thought was kind of cool.
See, that is cool. Like I wish more of like the malls that are getting smaller and can't keep people there, because there's a couple that were around my hometown as well, and it's like if they could just get if they would just go after like a niche and instead get a bunch of comic book stores, get arcades, get those what is it, those escape the room
yes,
like
escape the
stuff
room,
like that, like
right. Record stores too.
Exactly, just something that similar minded people or things that would attract various niches that usually overlap. It's a good idea to grab them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's actually a mall that since it's around like where Dylan used to live, well, kind of my hometown, there's a mall and it's pretty shitty, and the Kmart just left. Like,
oh wow,
I think it was the last Kmart around here, and that lasted like pretty long time, but that finally left, and now it's just like an FYE and like 2 things in the food court.
Yeah, well, what is it? A $5 Below dollar store, the food court.
Yeah,
it's
when the movie theater, which is the one thing I like about that mall is the movie theater, but everything else is like just trash.
Yeah, they probably have matinee prices all the time then. Yeah. That's what's good.
I was gonna say there's another mall I think near Greg as well, that similar thing, like everything closed down, but like there's the movie theater and like 2 other shops.
Right.
Yeah, Greg, you want to do the lightning round questions?
Okay. For lightning round questions, there's just 3, and you just try to answer as fast as you can, like first thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
Okay. So, favorite horror movie of all time?
Night of the Living Dead, hands down.
Favorite food?
Maryland blue crabs.
And if you were a killer in a horror movie, what sort of weapon would you use?
Knife.
It's like you've been planning this.
No, I mean, it's if I was in a horror film, I would want to write a personal story. There's nothing more personal than I mean, some slasher films can be kind of campy, but when there's a story behind a killer that's using a knife, it's usually pretty savage and personal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So on our podcast, usually we talk about like crowdfunding a lot. Even though we're not like the Comic Launch podcast, but we're trying in a way to be sort of like that, but being our own thing.
Well, you did a good job on yours, on the Kickstarter you just ran.
Yeah, because you actually you were one of the first to back us, and you gave us like $104.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I got to support the indie comics, man. You were one of the first ones to reach out to me to put my digital copy on your site too, on your subscription service. So we gotta help each other. Hope to be more involved with your site and creative and content and as well as marketing. I think it's great what you guys are doing. The backing, anytime you get a backer on Kickstarter, it pushes you up in the search and in the feed. So even if you have, say, 15 backers with only $20, you're still getting seen more than people that have $400 or $500. That's why it's important to put those low dollar pledges up there for $1 or $2 to either have your name in print, or people that just want to support something that don't have a lot of money. That sharing is invaluable too, because a lot of people that don't pledge just for whatever reason that they can't, they're still sharing it and getting in front of people from it. And I'm sure you saw when you ran your Kickstarter how you get emails every day from marketing places, and every other day this and that. Finally, I made one and was like, look, I'm not paying you to do something I could do better and faster myself. So stop emailing me this. If you want to do it for free, I'll put your name in the comic, and then you don't hear from that shit anymore.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that. But that type of marketing and cultivating and doing it yourself is really, crowdfunding. That's what it is. It's trying to get the crowd not the crowd, but the community to back something and help put it together. Well, not all of those people that can back it financially can do that. The people that can't back it financially, that are unable to, can still share it, and that's where it really starts to eat into the internet, as I call it. It eats the internet. It just gets in front of a lot of people, and then next thing you know, the hashtags are flying. I mean, towards the end of my campaign, people on Twitter were like, "Wow, all I see right now on my feed is Down By Kontact," because I had so many people sharing it. And I was unknown as a comic writer because this was my first comic, but I had a small fan base of just reading my articles that I've written for the Bloodshed and Attack from Planet Beast. So it was very very important for me to have that exposure, and it helped get the comic funded.
Yeah, and honestly, if you go to those marketing companies, you lose the personal touch that is what makes people interested in indie comics to begin with. Like, without being connected to the artist, the author, or the creator, just someone involved with the creation of these comics, like, it doesn't make them as interesting, because you could just go to a Marvel or DC for some of this stuff. So why come to a unique creator? And it's typically because you connect with them in some way.
Right, absolutely, and really all they're doing is spamming people anyway. They say they get it in front of 400 or 500 people. They're just collecting up addresses from those fake petitions that are on Facebook, and then they buy that information, or they have those fake accounts that have like 64,000 followers, and they're nothing but bots, and they just spin it out amongst each other. What I do, and what I've always specialized in, is targeted marketing to the targeted audience. So I try to get it in front of them. And I didn't really, I beat up my friends and family about it. I'm like, yo, give me a pledge, give me some money. And most of the other people that I talked to, I was just like, here, check this out. Please share it. And if you like it, pledge. And I had, within a couple days, I grew like 500 in sales and pledges from people I didn't know who they were. It was pretty awesome, man. I just saw the power of it once I started, really getting in front of the right people, and that's what marketing is all about. Not just spamming people, showing people what you can do and letting them make the choice.
Yeah, it's very much provide value, show what it is, and if they're interested, like you have to get the attention first. That's like the biggest thing. Like, you still have to get in front of somebody, but yeah, outside of that, like, the goal is essentially make sure you see me. This is what I have. If you like it, help out. If not, share. Next.
Right.
And it's like our first couple Kickstarters I'll just say crowdfunding, because we did it on a couple platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Our first couple crowdfunding efforts were definitely not very effective, and that was probably one of the biggest reasons, was that A, we didn't have a following, and B, we didn't actively go out and try to get in front of people as aggressively as we should have. And Greg knows this, because there's a launch plan that essentially is meant for launching products, businesses, etc. But I basically, it's from a book called The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. and it's an amazing little checklist. It's like 39 steps to take before launching, and
Right.
it leads up to everything, including the very end. I think technically there's actually 40 steps, because at the end it says that one of the steps is to make sure you always provide a little extra, something like that.
Right.
And so basically, all Greg did was follow that checklist this time. Not everything was applicable to a crowdfunding campaign, but I think it was like 21 of the items were. And because of that, like we hit like almost halfway to our goal in like the first couple weeks. Like we were trying to figure out what to do with our next
with the stretch goals. The stretch goals.
Like, what the hell do we do?
Right. Well, that's something. I mean, you learn a lot from doing it, and I did too. I just I knew it wasn't going to be able to get made unless I got more money. I just didn't have enough, and I saw some things that were working for other people's comics, and then I started trading some pledges with people. Be like, hey, you buy my stuff, I'll buy your stuff. I started doing that, and that gave me a little bit of a jump. And I figured, well, if I could find a way to get more people to donate, I could push it up in the feed. And then when I started doing that, that was when I started selling the advertising and started pulling more money.
So were you doing actual Facebook ads or Twitter ads or?
No, I use Facebook. I spread it around in a lot of the groups. I'm a member of just about every horror group that's on Facebook, and I just shared it. I got permission from the administrators. I said, hey, I'm not trying to spam the group, but this is a really good project. I'd like to share it in the group once a week. You do that so they don't kick you out, because if you get suspended for spamming on Facebook, you could get sunk real quick. But with Twitter, it was more of, there's 4 or 5 people that just read and retweet everything that I put out there. They've always read my articles. They've always shared my articles and stuff like that. It's like, hey, I need you guys' help with this campaign. Just share it like it's the plague. And every day in the notifications, I would usually have, maybe between 6 and 10 a day on average. During the campaign, I was having like 25 and 30 because it just kept retweeting and retweeting. And the more it was retweeting, I saw the traffic increase on the campaign. And that's when the money started coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's we mentioned in previous podcasts, but the 1,000 true fans, the whole concept of having somebody that no matter what you put out there, they're going to consume it, buy it, support it. And so it's definitely good to have this basically a support staff on social media. So
well, something I did when I used to write for the Bloodshed, when I first started writing, I would do like pieces, and I started interviewing and interviewing directors of screeners, horror shorts, different indie horror films, and I would get their work out there and then promote their company a bit, because I'm promoting my own writing, but at the same time I'm helping the director reach their audience more. So I gained a lot of allies in the field doing that. And, of course, they all pledged back when I ran my Kickstarter, and most likely will on the next one. But they also are very receptive to my opinion on their work. So like a friend of mine, Richard Roundtree, who directed the horror film Dogged and the home invasion film Nefarious, he sent me the screener before it was edited and ready to start being, the final stages of production with Dogged, because he wanted to know, what I thought and how the film was shot, how it was written, and stuff like that. So I think people out there see that I'm very involved in the community, and they respect my opinion more than, say, just like an online critic. Because I don't like those reviews where people are pretentious and they think it's just edgy to blast people's work. I always want to say to them, where's your movie? Where's your comic? You think, for example, Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie can get some criticism. I get it. Not everybody's a fan of his style and everything. But have you made 6 horror movies? Have you had 2 bands that have been that successful? I don't think it's really fair for people to do that. So if I see something and I like it, I'm definitely going to praise it and get it out there, because I think other people should see it. And that's pretty much been my style for that. And interviewing people, artists, different creators, comic creators too, just anybody that's doing anything that I think is cool in the field. I used to write a lot of interviews like that and publish them on the Bloodshed and get it out there as well. So that was like, planting a seed that I'm definitely harvesting from now. Over a couple of years of doing that, you really start to meet a lot of people and gain a lot of connections with different directors and stuff like that. So it's that's been just as valuable as target marketing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny. After I showed our first comic to some people and got some feedback. One of them actually wants to write their own comic, and they were
Right.
getting like overly critical. And I go, "Thank you for the feedback, but I want these certain notes." And when they started getting so critical, I go, "Well, it's better than your comic because they don't have to create it." And it's like, yeah, so it is funny because you got to take criticism to be able to improve your work. But definitely when you start getting that one where it's just like overly critical, or it's just like, oh, this doesn't, when you can tell it's just because it's not for them, it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I want constructive feedback, not just tear downs. It's something I can do with it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Everybody has an opinion these days, and to me, some people's opinions are valid and some of them aren't, whether they think they are or not. There's certain people that I go to for advice about things. There's certain people, not everybody read not everybody that read my comic liked it. It didn't get panned, but it does have some weaknesses, but there's reasons for them too. It does have some pacing issues because it was written as a film. And it was supposed to be adapted into a longer graphic novel, but my artist was taking so long with everything because there's a lot of reasons for it, but there was I was forced to edit it and change the story a bit. So like the first act and the second act move slower than the third act, which I understand, but the whole story does get told. But to say that this doesn't work or it doesn't fit well and it makes the comic bad just simply isn't true. There's good writing behind this, and the artwork is amazing. Like I said, it does take a long time, but God, it was worth it, man. My artist did an amazing job on this, just with everything that she put into it and how it was organically made, with how I wrote it and then explained how I wanted the storyboards to look and what I wanted the panels to have, and then her taking what I said and putting her own spin on it was just perfect. There wasn't really anything other than a couple typos that we had to go back and fix. There wasn't any point where it was like, no, this doesn't look right. Like the whole thing just looks fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny too because Greg definitely Greg understands the issue with going from screenplay to comic.
Right.
So
it's difficult, man. It's difficult.
Well, his original story was basically written like a novel that was then converted into a screenplay, and then then the screenplay was converted into a comic. And so there's some like rough edges that basically I've kind of become like the editor in chief, having to review stuff and go like, hey, I know where you're going with this, but you're missing some stuff. And so when our first comic, when we got it into the hands of our artists, like some of it just didn't quite flow. Like the very first one, it was just like the very first rendition of it just didn't really work out at all. It's like, this doesn't quite make sense. And even after we redid it, there's still some like little gaps that we need to fix. And but it's definitely a difficult task. But now that we've printed it out, we've gotten all the feedback from the first one. Currently, we just finished reviewing the solo series that we're going to be printing, and that's because we got the third stretch goal. I forgot which stretch goal that one was.
It was the third.
The third for ink?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember
it. So I just finished with Greg going over the entire script, and basically the original panels were sent to the artist. They were drawn up, and then after reviewing how they were drawn up, some of it didn't quite flow with the story, so we actually switched it. So now it's going to be more of like a narrative kind of story where the character is actually going to be like those box bubbles that it's kind of like he's narrating in the background. That's kind of how we're going through it to help some of the panels flow better with each other, so they make a little more sense. And now after like reading through it, it's like this actually, even though it didn't make sense from the drawings to what we originally had, now it actually looks and sounds pretty awesome. So we're definitely excited to get that work out there.
Yeah, the narration panels are pretty powerful, and they can link See, what I found with writing comics, especially since like the same thing, this wasn't written as a comic. What I see a lot of people do is the comic is so riddled with dialogue that you can't see the art very well. And
Yeah.
I was trying to say the most with least, if you know what I mean. And I was trying to use the narration panels sparingly, but to set the setting, because the story itself is told in a flashback, but you don't realize that until the last page of the comic. The narration panels were able to tie the protagonists together with the character-driven story and set it up for what was about to happen.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that was something that was a challenge for me, because I worked on one page that has maybe 15 words on it. I worked on that for about a month because I couldn't figure out how to do it, and then finally it just hit me. It was when the characters were leaving out of the woods after they stashed the alcohol from that beer run, and then they went to the arcade to find out it was closed, which was something else I had to rewrite too, because in the screenplay, the arcade isn't closed. There's another character that I wasn't able to put in the comic, and it was somebody, because I'm not an actor, but he's going to have, he has memorable lines in the story, so if I ever do make this into a film, I want to play him. And when the guys show up at the place, he's shutting it down because they're having power failures, and they were told by mall security that they need to close the place up. And that's when they decide, all right, well, what are we going to do now? You know, they've been drinking and smoking weed and everything all day, and now they're like, okay, well, there's no tournament to play. Let's just go out to the woods and party. And that's when they go out in the woods, and the dude just gets grabbed and bit, and they don't realize what's going on, and they look around. They're just completely surrounded by zombies. And that's when it it pops off. And then the story shifts, as you remember, where they save that little girl, and then it revolves around trying to protect her towards the end. And then you realize that this entire story, when it colorizes, is actually what she remembers from it and how it happened. And 20 years later, it's that's the way the world is. That's why she's putting flowers on the grave of the guy who saved her.
That's very cool. But yeah, definitely the narration bubbles is definitely something that we're probably going to start utilizing more. I actually originally got the idea because I was looking through IT Comics, the Impact Theory comics. They have Neon Future, and after going through it, I realized one of the things that made it so interesting was right in the beginning, there's like a whole block of narrative, like just text. Like it's got a cool background and stuff, but other than that, it's just a block of text, and that sets you up for the first page that seems out of nowhere. So as opposed to seeming out of nowhere, you have context before you ever see any artwork.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting concept. And then throughout the beginning of the artwork, it kind of just lets you enjoy the artwork without there being people talking. And there's a lot of narration bubbles talking about what's going on. And I was like, that's a pretty good concept. So we kind of, took that and we're spreading that throughout this upcoming comic. So it'll be interesting to see how it looks when it's actually all colored and lettered and stuff. But
yeah, I like that. I like that concept of it, because it's like I said before, you're going to say more with less, and it's really going to set the setting for the comic and for the pages of when the story starts to change a little bit and develop, you're going to already have that preset in the reader's mind, which is that's what comics is all about. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of superhero movies, because it just can't touch the universe that I created in my mind since I was a kid watching. I mean, some of them are visually good, or they're well written or well acted. I mean, Deadpool was really great, but it's just something that's not. It just can't touch the medium. There's you just can't take one and make it into the other, because you can do that. Kind of stuff in a comic that you can't do in a film.
Oh, 100%. That's why it's funny, because like Marvel does what they do a good job for what they can do,
right?
Because of the fact you're right, they're limited. Like honestly, it'd be great to get like 7 Iron Man movies before you ever see him introduced into like Avengers. But like literally due to time, the age of the actors, like because they age over the years, like it's not something you can physically do in a short amount of time. Maybe in the future when CGI is exceedingly fast, but in the meantime, like it takes quite a while to do that stuff. But
it takes a long time to create and a whole lot of money, because you got to pay a lot of people, and it's something that if it's compromised, it just looks really bad. It doesn't.
Yeah, which
it doesn't
ironically,
look
that's why the DC, we talked about that on another episode. That's the reason the DC, franchise right now has just been like, or not franchise, whatever it's called, just hasn't been
universe.
doing,
The universe.
Yeah, the
Right.
DC universe just hasn't been doing great because they didn't even attempt to do it the way that like Marvel did, which was definitely the best alternative to making comics into movies, like building up a character and then joining them. They were just like, here's a character, here's another, and they're all into the same movie. And it's like, who the hell?
Right.
Why do I care about these 6 other characters?
The thing with DC too is they're not going to change that formula, because if you look at the budget and the money that it's making, that's why all these films are getting remade. They're not trying to make a good film; they're trying to make money, and I get it, And with DC, until people stop watching it, they're not going to change the formula.
It's just like those damn video games where people keep pre-ordering them. It's like, stop it! You keep complaining that they suck, but you keep giving them money before it even comes out. That's why they keep doing it.
Yep.
It's like, just like let them fail one time and they'll see their wrong ways. Like Call of Duty, I know that like what was it, like the Infinite Warfare and Advanced Warfare, 2 of the relatively newer ones. So bad that their newest one is ridiculous. Like I played the beta version of it, and even though there was bugs, like I was like, this is a different game. Like this is incredible.
Yeah.
Because they had a couple of flops and they needed to change. But like, for so long, people kept buying the same damn game remastered over and over and over again. And it's like, they're never going to change. Why would they? They're making money.
Well, the Resident Evil 2 remake did very well, and I'm hoping that they're going to have more horror remakes of games. They're talking about, putting out another Silent Hill. The Resident Evil 2 remake, I mean, that game was pretty terrifying. Just how it was set up inside of the police station, when you have your flashlight and you just can't see anything, and you're going around corners and you just see hands coming out to get you, and then the sounds and the background sounds and playing it with surround sound. I mean, it is a very intense game, and I always like that because it's there's a lot of puzzles and things you have to solve. And the complaint you always have is like, oh wow, I just got 6 bullets, now I got to fight 2 bosses in a row, because you never have enough ammo to survive. But playing that game was a lot of fun because it just looked so much more realistic because of graphics, technology advancing over the past 20 years, but it still had that same feel of the original Resident Evil 2 of just claustrophobia and fear and not being able to get away. And that's something, like, especially with horror games and zombies, that's really the main fear behind it.
Oh yeah, it's funny too. I think the horror genre for video games kind of came back pretty hard after VR came out for a little bit. Like, because VR still exists, but not a lot of games are coming out for it. But there were a couple of horror VR games they made that, like, damn, like they're like they're only like, some of them are like little 5-minute demo games that are still terrifying just because like, they're so immersed in it. And I think that like those, along with like the Escape the Rooms, like the in real life ones that they've created, like that's kind of brought this horror genre back from the dead, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it's very cool to see it. They had all the great, like, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all those older ones, and then it kind of seemed like a lot of them just became like Saw. Like that was one that came out that was like, holy crap. But like there's a bunch between those and Saw and after Saw that kind of were like, they were just meant to be gory. They weren't actually that scary.
Right.
Where like, now because they're trying to, the graphics are better, stuff like VR that's allowing you to get more fully immersed. It's very cool to see that stuff, coming back.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, and there's a huge market out there for it too. So, I'm thinking over the next 5 years, you're gonna see a really big resurgence of horror video games. What I'm surprised is with the success of Rocket League that they haven't tried to bring Twisted Metal back, man.
I know the sweet. I love Rocket League. They had a Sweet Tooth in it, and it was like this. Like Rocket League is like if you nerfed Twisted Metal and added soccer.
Right.
Like, that's all it is. Like
that's exactly what it is.
They added a game mode called Rumble, and it's almost exactly like the same concept, but again, you can, your car can fly. But like,
right.
It's such like that. Like honestly, that's like one of my favorite games ever made now because it's so simplistic and enjoyable. Like even when you like, unless you're doing competitive, if you're just playing standard mode, even when you're losing, it's fun because it's just a ridiculous game.
It's all about timing and momentum and just getting your vehicle at that right spot to hit the ball. But the it's just fun. Like I don't know any other way to describe it, man. Driving up and down the sides of the wall and jumping out and smacking the ball across, or when you slide and like drift right in front of the goal and save that goal, and then everybody on your team's like, oh, it's just a lot of fun to play. But yeah, I miss the Twisted Metal franchise, man. They had something there. And car combat games in general, like Vigilante 8, that was a good one too, and it had a really good story where they were fighting over the fuel during the fuel crisis in the 70s, and it was just a really fun game to play. Plus, you could be a school bus on that thing, and you get that thing going down the hill, and then you rip the e-brake, and it goes sideways and just plowed through everything. A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It's actually interesting. I'm actually curious who still owns Twisted Metal because recently, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they the Unreal Engine 4 became open source, along with you have like Unity and a couple other developers, IDEs, there we go, that you can build games off of. And so it'd be interesting because if Twisted Metal is like open to play with now, or if like it'd be interesting to see if some indie creator could rebuild that game now. That'd be pretty interesting to check out.
I mean, all they got to do is take the controls from the second one. The whole platform, everything with that one, all the sequels that they make, I mean, some of them looked better, but that game itself with the interactive environments just on PlayStation 1 were just really, it was a lot of fun. Like we would stay up, my best friend and I would stay up all night, just drinking beer, playing that game. And it was, we'd never stop. We played for like 8-9 hours. It's like, all right, well, we got to stop now to eat, get some sleep, and then we're going right back to it. There's games out there like Grand Theft Auto and stuff that you can get immersed in pretty well too. But Twisted Metal was just fun, and it was something like with online multiplayer mode now, like it really should be brought back so people can play it. I mean, put the second one out there for free, and then charge people for the better content and the better cars, like they do with Apex and the other games. That seems to be the new thing too.
I was about to say that's why Rocket League is so effective, because like someone like me, I don't buy anything in the game. I'll trade with people to get it.
Right.
But the point is that I still promote the crap out of that game. So even though I only bought the game once, and they keep giving they added like 6 different modes to the game for free. Yeah. It's like the part that they make the money on is the people that want to support it. So like I think there was twice that I bought something and I didn't need it. I wanted to give them money for being so awesome. I was like,
right.
like what is it that fry? Shut up and take my money, right? Like
exactly.
But yeah, no, it's definitely cool. But yeah, speaking of just the horror genre, what actually got you interested in horror genre? Like, what was that first little taste that got you into it?
Late night shock theater when I was a kid. The old classic horror films, really. Universal, big Universal fan. Big fan of pre-code horror films like, Frankenstein, Dracula, Freaks. I'm a big Todd Browning fan. My opinion, that film should have launched his career, not ruined it. It was something that was recognized later as an actual important piece of American cinema. But really watching those older classic horror films, and recently, watching White Zombie with a friend, she said, Lugosi's creepier in this film than he was in Dracula. And that was an independent film and very successful for its time, too. And having a zombie as a mindless victim controlled by somebody else with having the lead very creepy was effective. And, going back to Romero, he was who made the zombie into a monster that you just can't get away from. And that was something that, seeing Night of the Living Dead when I was young and being terrified from that film as well made me want to see more horror films. And, I'm a fan of most stuff. The gore and the blood and guts and everything, it doesn't scare me. Like I've seen so many French and Italian exploitation films from the 70s when I was a kid that make that crap look like Sesame Street to me. It's just not scary. And there's a lot of films out there that are a lot more scary that don't get the recognition they deserve. Like personally, I found The Witch to be one of the best horror films made over the past couple of years. A lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was very good, you know, with the way it was filmed in its time. It was shot very well, it was written very well for what it was, and it was pretty scary. But for me, as influence for horror films, definitely goes back to classic horror, moving into the slasher genres. You know, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, the Nightmare on Elm Streets. You know, more Friday the 13th than Halloween, but it all started from the classics. Definitely the classics.
That's awesome because it is always interesting to see like how people get into that stuff because yeah, horror can definitely be like some people like the just the blood and gore, and so that's also why they like it. But it is cool to, you know, like, yeah, like you were mentioning, like the video game ones, like getting like the claustrophobic, like getting that feeling, knowing you're safe. It's almost like riding a roller coaster. You know what I mean? Like you get that fear without the danger.
Right. Well, I mean, the biggest horror exists in your mind. You know, if you read a lot of Stephen King books compared to the films, like I think they did a pretty good job on it, but the book was still scarier. And pretty much all of his work has been better by book, in my opinion. That you just, you know, when you read something, it's in your mind, and you're seeing. I don't know how to explain it.
It's like your interpretation. It's like whatever you. Like, yeah. When they describe something scary, a movie might show it one way, but that's not how you would have pictured it if you read it. Because if you read it one way, your mind goes to the scarier one for you. And so yeah, it's cool that you're basically the story is manipulated based on the reader and their fears.
Exactly. I'm glad you said it for me because I wouldn't have been able to say it better. But that's also something. Right. That's also something I like about comics too. Now, I'm a big fan of gore in comics. You know, I love the Vault of Horror and the old EC comics and stuff. But that's a little different. You know, you're taking artistic talent and ability and making something visually appalling to the reader to really scare them, depending on what the story's all about. That's something that I like about comics in general because it's better than a film and a book because it's a book of illustrations. So at the same time, you know, you're seeing it, but you're in your head a little bit more about what's going on in the universe around you. Only part of that universe is presented to you through the pages of the comic. That's what I found when transferring it from a film to a book.
Yeah, that's definitely like the hardest part because it's almost like walking through a movie and it's like, when do I take the picture? Like, what moment is the moment that captures a 30-second scene in one photo, right? Like that's kind of like that's like what we were doing with Greg's screenplay. Like we had to like look through it, and it's like you have 6 motions in this one thing. How can we break this up into like 1 to 3 panels so that we get the gist of what's going on and get all the emotion without having to, you know, compromise the fact that there's more that should have gone on.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult to do, man. It takes a lot of passion, and it takes a lot of creativity and ability to be able to write stuff like that, man. It's see, I can't draw for shit, so I respect the hell out of artists too. But I mean, writing is its own different animal, man. A lot of people don't realize that. That's why they don't become writers, you know, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's something that is a good creative outlet, but at the same time, like there's a lot more to it with structure and being able to tell an actual story without it, you know, getting away from you. So if you start writing one scene, that could wind up somewhere else in the book or in the comic or even in the film, you know, depending on what you're writing, because you intended it to be here, but then you wrote something else that it doesn't work with, so you kind of have to move things around.
Well, that's why, like, even with music, there's, you know, very few actual singers or songwriters and performers. Like most of the singer-songwriters are, you know, not people that are big. Like there's very few people that do both, and those are like the rare few. Typically, it's a performer who is talented in the expression of the song, and then somebody who is capable of writing a song that the words hit you.
Yeah, then you have people like Bob Dylan that is a really great songwriter and thinks he can sing, and he tries, but it sounds really bad. But yeah, like with writing music too. I mean, I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan, and the song "The Chain" has a bass line in the middle of the riff right before the guitar solo. That was actually written to be the intro of the song, but they wound up sticking it in later. So that happens too with writing music. Something that you write to be like a chorus might actually be the intro riff, depending on the genre.
No, that's very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
You're great. You got that next one.
Yeah. I'm actually trying to make a slasher comic, like it's inspired by like 80s slasher movies,
Nice.
and like make it original. I don't want to like copy things from like Nightmare on Elm Street or anything.
Mhm.
I asked a couple months ago from a couple of creators, and then you got interested in it, and then they kind of I like created a small group for just that comic conversation, and there's one guy that's right now writing with me for that. It's gonna be like an anthology thing,
Right.
but he actually was like wondering how are we gonna make a slasher comic when like it can't be like a slasher movie, like you can't do jump scares. So like how would you like make it still disturbing and like scary to a reader without jump scares?
Good question. I guess if I was writing it, I would start it off in a situation where people are conversing, and regardless of the conversation, after a couple pages in, just show the slasher and just have them brutally murdered. Like Alfred Hitchcock said, make the audience suffer as much as possible. Jar them. Have regular people, maybe a man and a woman, a couple in an apartment. Like even Alfred Hitchcock style. Have it like a noir setting, and then they just get brutally attacked and murdered for reasons unknown that will be told later. That's how I would start it. I would maybe put a backstory in it, like halfway through, say like 5 years ago, and then show why the guy's a killer, depending on if he's like a supernatural force, like Michael Myers is presented, or if he's just a psychopath with a knife. It depends on the actual story. I would write out an outline for it and see, like, if you have an idea of the plot and the setting and what you want to do, but might not have the story all pieced together, that's okay. But you can outline it and see where you want to go within, and then take the characters that are in it, and they don't have to have a lot of development, obviously, because they're going to get killed, but they have to have some. And then I would create and write around what they are inside their environment. For example, like if you're talking about a couple and the guy's a banker and the girl's a real estate agent, obviously they're going to have a really nice place, But if you're talking about somebody who's maybe a truck driver and his wife, has 3 small kids, the place is going to be a lot different looking in that environment. And whatever the characters are about and whatever they're based on, in the killer's environment, I would just try and make it as concise as possible. And definitely, when you come to slashers, man, it's got to be brutal and it's got to be bloody. That's really that's the key, because you can have a zombie flick without a lot of blood, but you can't do a slasher. That's what it's all about.
That's actually pretty cool. One thing that made me think of was two things that made me think of. The first one is right in the beginning of that book, kind of like I was talking about the Neon Future, where it's got like a almost like a monologue in the beginning. It's just text.
Right.
It'd be interesting to have a description of like, hey, the best way to enjoy this book is at night by a single light. You know what I mean? Like almost like tell them how to read it. Because did you ever play the game Gears of War?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So the very first time I played that game was after my older brother and one of my younger brothers played the game late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, just the two of them. It's a co-op, essentially horror action game.
Right.
It scared the shit out of them. So when they were done, they told me like, "Hey, get someone else to play this. Just you and them. Wait till everyone's asleep. It's dark out, the lights are out, and play this." And I played with my cousin at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And it scares the shit out of you. Like it's so great. But I don't know if it would have been as terrifying if I didn't play it late at night, no one else is awake, and all of a sudden like that, the berserker breaks through the wall, right? Like
right.
those first moments. But that would be an interesting way to set them up, like tell them how to read it. And then the other one was something that we're doing for the Ink comic is we set it up so that something interesting that's very colorful, very bright, is specifically happening once you flip the page. So it's going to be a normal story, flip, normal story, and then when you flip, all of a sudden there's chaos.
Right.
And almost having that be the shock, even though it obviously isn't jumping out at you, but it will jump out at you because of the artwork. So it's almost like, oh my God, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a curiosity peak kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that idea a lot. And then it gives a chance to have both the writing and the artwork shine through and tells the story. You know, that's the trick with comic writing is you gotta pair both of them together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. I like that idea.
Okay, great. You got the next one?
Yeah. I have to,
Number 9?
yeah, I have to make another recording. One sec.
Oh, okay. Yeah, YouTube records straight, but Anchor apparently only lets you go for an hour,
Yeah.
which was 5 minutes ago.
Oh wow.
Although actually no, technically that's the YouTube, that one that's 5 minutes ago. I think we started Anchor after that.
We've been on for an hour? Oh wow, we have been. Time flies when you start talking about good shit.
Oh yeah. When we first started this podcast, we were like, oh, probably like 10 minutes to a half hour, and then like
Right.
our first podcast was like an hour, and we're like, okay, maybe the next one will lower that one.
Right.
The questions are more talking points than actual questions. The people that asking even you, they're like, so I don't really know how I'm going to keep the conversation going. I'm like, no, we'll keep the conversation going.
Also, Greg, your mic's a little covered again. You sound like super muffled.
Is that good?
That's better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
My laptop. Okay.
But yeah. So do you have Anchor back up?
Yeah.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, oh, that's weird. What the fuck is the mic on this thing? Yeah, actually, for that slasher comic, there's how the story is, because like an anthology, it's gonna be more than one slasher because, and it's different time periods. So mine is gonna be in the 90s or 80s, I think. I think mine's
Right.
No, mine's the 90s because I made like the clothing kind of like 90s clothing.
Nice. I mean, my comic takes place in the 90s too.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of period pieces.
I like the 90s because that's when I grew up, and
Right.
that's stuff. Personally, I think. So my portion of the comic takes place at a camp because my favorite horror movie, like series, is Friday the 13th. So
Right.
I'm kind of building off of that in a way, but it's not gonna be Jason, but it's gonna be something like that. Then the other guy that's writing, he is doing something with a cabin or something. And there's another guy, and all the stories come together because of the anthology. So it all connects to this like one reason like why this like town is like hidden, and it's like nobody actually knows it exists. And you like sin or something happens, and you end up in that town, and you're like stuck there. And then
Sounds like kind of like American Horror Story.
yeah, in a way. Yeah. So but like written better. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's basically kind of like that. So now to move on, we have that Indie Revolution like magazine coming out next year because first it was just a hashtag that we created with a couple of creators, and then I decided like one day at work, because there's nothing else I can do at work besides think, is what can I actually do with this besides just being a hashtag? So I came up with this idea for a magazine, and it's gonna have like indie musicians, comic creators, writers, whatever, in it. And I was just wondering what you would put in the magazine that like should be actually included in it.
It sounds like you want to do a magazine where it showcases people's work. I would follow the same structure of maybe like Fangoria does. Just talk, interview the person to do like a short couple paragraph interview, 1 or 2 pages, and then just showcase their art. If they're a musician, talk about the genre a little bit, where they're from, and just let them talk about their music and what inspired them, and just kind of piece the whole thing together like that. I don't really know what else you could do. You could sell advertising in it to help fund it. Yeah, they like. I mean, I would definitely pay to put my work in there, to have just here, order here, or see this here, or just have the cover of the comic. But I think that I think a lot of people will be receptive to it too.
Actually,
They
yeah,
would want to be in the comic.
that just made me think about it, Greg. We should, if before we get into that too, we should reach out to companies like Ready Comics, because I'm sure that they'd be interested in reaching out or reaching indie creators that could potentially all be following this magazine.
Oh,
Right.
well, I'm using them to print it anyway.
What?
I was going to use Ready Comics to print anyway.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah.
Oh, they'll pay to advertise in it. Ready Comics will, Comics Wellspring. I mean, they even give you price breaks when you advertise their comic in it. They're all about getting their name out there, because they want to specialize. Like, they do posters and cards and stuff too, but they really want to be in the business of printing indie comics. So
yeah, we had a chat with their owner about that, trying to be like their basically their funnel. So if we bring them enough indie creators, we're hoping that we can build discounts for indie creators who are ordering smaller quantities, but
Right.
because we want to get it so frequently that they're able to cut the cost on those small quantities.
Gotcha.
Even though they can't get the bulk orders that they would be looking to get.
Right. Well, if you have a avenue for people to sell more on your website, that might give the opportunity for independent artists to be able to produce more comics, so that because they're selling more of them.
There's two things we're trying to do with that. The first thing we did was we created was it a contact form that basically, so not to bust on Ready Comics, but their website for ordering comics is extremely dizzying.
Right.
And so
I know I was going to go through them. I wound up going through Comics Wellspring because they called me back and kind of walked me through it. Since it was my first comic and I was all ready to do it, I was really confused with a lot of stuff. And I mean, I can be tech savvy, but I never really used Dropbox before or anything like that. Everything I've done was through JPEG, and I had all the files together. I just didn't know how to do it. And they called me up, they talked to me on the phone, then they sent me the digital proofs, and I mean, they did a fantastic job. I mean, the comic, it's a grayscale for most of it with some deep saturation of red and black, and like, it looks better in a hard copy than it does as a digital copy. Like, they really did a good job. But I mean, I'm sure Ready Comics can do a good job too, but they were, Comics Wellspring was the one who called me back and spent an hour with me on the phone telling me what to do, so that's why I went with them.
Yeah, that's actually why we're trying to hopefully work with Ready Comics in a way that we can basically be the middleman to make all of that easier for creators. Like, so we created a contact form that simplifies all the stuff that you would need to fill out there, and essentially we would be the ones that order it through Ready Comics, and that way they're only dealing with us, and that way, like, because the more we utilize them, the easier they'll be to work with. And so if everyone's just getting funneled through us, that'd be a lot easier. And then the other thing we were going to do is, once we get enough feedback on certain comics, we're going to create a print store, or a store on our website that you can order prints from. We're going to start it by keeping it a little bit more exclusive, where only a few creators get to go in there. And by doing that, it'll be something like, say your particular comic is drawing a lot of attention, then we'll put yours in the print category. That way it encourages people to want to promote their comic, because we do have a couple of creators who we have their comic up, but they don't promote it at all, so they don't get any views. And we already have a few people that are paying for the subscription, but if nobody views your comic, you won't be one of the people that gets paid. So it's like that's kind of like what we're trying to really push, is like something that will get people to promote it, because even a small promotion, again, like comic book creator A could push someone to the site, and they might only view comic book creator C's work. But the point is, comic book creator C also does it. They might view A, and so we're hoping that if we get enough people to keep pushing people there, that that'll be a great way to actually get that done. And,
that's what I was saying before about having the store too. It's definitely going to help people promote the site and everybody else's work at the same time. I mean, if you have comics on there, I mean, when you first put up my the digital version of my comic, man, I was all over that, and I kind of got away from it just because of time with my work schedule and writing and everything else that I'm doing. But I mean, I definitely want to spend a couple hours a week just promoting the fact that it's there, because it helps get more subscriptions, it helps get more views of the site and everything else. And when you have a bunch of people doing that, it's very valuable. It's all about marketing, like we talked about.
Like the long-term goal of that is that if we get enough people in a group to do that, that eventually if our business's income gets to a level that we have spare cash that's not just being used to pay for hosting and website stuff,
right?
Once we get to a certain revenue level, we can actually then start being the promoters as well, like we'll take our own revenue and pay for Facebook ads.
There you go.
So that's our goal. It's like if we just get enough people in the beginning to promote it on their own, so that we get a large enough following. That's what our goal is to essentially we're helping as much as we can for free, like by sharing people's content and promoting it, over our social media accounts. But we're hoping that as we build our website up, then eventually we can even have we can amplify that through stuff like Facebook ads, Google ads, things like that, where we can actually grow the site as a whole, which will hopefully help all of the individual creators.
Absolutely. Hey, count me in. Whatever you need. Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, everything you guys are doing is great. I like all your ideas of getting more indie creators together. But with trying to get this comic in the shops, I'm finding out distribution isn't that easy. If you don't go through Diamond, then that's a huge risk. You lose a lot. And if they only put you in a couple stores, you're locked up with them. You can't really do it. So I've been doing more of a hands-on thing. Like I'm taking a trip up to Pennsylvania, New Jersey in November, and I'm going to try and get it into some shops that I've been in contact with, and some other shops. They want to see the comic first, and they want to sit down and talk. And I'm thinking after a 15-minute conversation, I'll be able to make some kind of deal with them. I got to send comics to people up there that bought them during the Kickstarter anyway. So, and my brother, who actually didn't pledge to my Kickstarter, but he did buy some comics from me, I'll just send them all to him and make him drive them over and deliver it. So that'll cut down on the shipping costs.
Yeah, that's actually very cool, because one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to essentially like partner with certain creators who live in different cities.
Right.
So that if they're in contact with their local comic creators, we can essentially become a source where, like, say they're like, hey, I want to get my comic to different comic book stores.
Right.
Which ones are you connected with? And essentially by partnering with various creatives, instead of just bringing your comic, maybe you can go, oh, I have 6 comics to bring, and that might be like more appetizing for the store, like where it's like, oh, like you're actually going to bring me a lot of stuff. It's not just one comic, like, because some creators, they physically can't, they don't have the time to create several comics a year. So if they're only doing one a year or only a couple a year, but yet we had 6 people to do that, or 6 creators to do that. Then people can go to stores and be like, hey, we got a bunch, here's, and even if you can't get yours in that store, maybe someone else in one of our other spots can get it in that store. And so essentially that's what we're looking to do.
Good stuff. And it also, if you have the opportunity to get it in more stores, you can order more than 100 copies and then get the price down, and then you can make a better deal for the shops. Some of them are independent and they can do whatever they want to do, but a lot of them are tied up with distribution themselves. That's what I'm finding out in this. This is my first comic too, so I'm still learning a lot of different aspects of the business and trying to get it in. But so far, it's been well received by, definitely the horror community loves it. George Romero fans pretty much adore it. The comic shops and stuff that it's starting to land into, and that I have talked to here in Baltimore, excuse me, also have a record shop that's going to stock it, and I'm trying to get it in this head shop where they sell like vapes and pipes and stuff like that. They're talking about it too. So there's there's a lot going on, and it's not just comic book shops that can stock an independent comic. The record stores, and with the vinyl resurgence, I'm a pretty avid vinyl collector, so I got good relationships with all those business owners in the city and some in the county. I've just been calling them up, asking for help. Hey, stock my comic. take it on consignment, see if it sells. We'll work out a deal, or trade me records for it. Whatever. Do what you got to do to get it in there. But online sales have been good, and with Comic-Con coming this past weekend here in Baltimore, I didn't have time to get a table. It was actually delivered Friday when Comic-Con started on Friday. I knew I was going to push that window, or I knew I might miss that window, so I didn't get a table. But I work right across the street from Comic-Con. So everybody, I work in a brewery right across the street. So everybody that came in, they're all comic fans. I had them right there at my tables and everything that I was talking to. So I was like, here, check out my comic too. Man, I probably sold 15 copies on that Saturday night, just to the people coming in and out. So I know if I get, I was impressed, man. And then I sold them, to everybody at work. But I know that if I get it in front of people and the right audience, it's going to be bigger than what it's starting out to be. But I'm excited for it, and it's it's a really great piece of work. It's a fun read, especially this time of year, and.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's you definitely want to push hard on that too. When you get those little windows, like if you're writing a holiday piece, push it during those holidays.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very cool, and that definitely that's very guerrilla marketing content, type of stuff you're doing, which is awesome. We gotta get a blog article about that. That's what we gotta do.
Yeah, man. I'm down. Yeah, it's you gotta trying to get it out there. I'm doing everything I can think of. I'm pretty decent at online marketing, but if I have shops in my area or somebody that's could potentially stock it, I got to go to them and have a conversation with the owner. And I have good relationships with people around here. Like I said, the record shops and the comic shops and stuff like that too. And they know what I've been doing, and they also see like that I help market their stuff too. I'm always plugging. Collector's Corner here in Baltimore, and putting Canton Games out there on social media and stuff like that. Just trying to get more traffic to their shop, so they see that, hey, if I put my comic in if they put my comic in their shop, I can help them in other ways too. Just I'm not just another customer that's trying to get you to buy my book and stock it. Like, I can actually do things to help your business grow just for you stocking it.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much the approach I'm taking.
Yeah, I was just thinking one thing you could also do, not just for stocking it, but I know that my when I had a barber when I was a kid that I went to all the time. He's still in the same city, but basically he had a whole bookshelf of just comic books. That's actually how I got into comic books when I was much younger. Nice. And it was funny because I never actually owned any of my own comics. It's just whenever I went to get my haircut, I would just start filing through the new comics he had laid out. And I was just thinking about that. If you have any local barbershops, nothing that's like the franchise type,
right, yeah,
that might be something. It's like, hey, can I slip this in your magazine rack? You know what I mean? Like, just put a couple in there, that people can read while they're sitting down waiting to get their haircut. And that's a cool way to get your name out there.
That's a good idea, and that's something I didn't even think about. But there's barber shops on almost every corner in Baltimore City, so yeah, that's pretty smart.
Yeah, there's like a whole book of guerrilla marketing tactics. It's definitely definitely some little stuff like that. But giving your stuff out for free in spots where it might be influential is very, very valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like it's off of my tattoo artist. And I'm actually going to give him a couple copies, and he's going to just have them at his store. So when someone's friend is just sitting there waiting for their friend to get tattooed, they can just read it sitting there. So.
That's a good idea. Your ink's pretty badass, dude. I like the color combinations. Yeah. Tattoo shops, barber shops. That's why I said I'll go in the vape shops, and obviously I'm a vapor. I was a cigarette smoker for 20 years. Vaping finally helped me quit 5 years ago.
And now they're going to make all the stupid laws.
Yeah, well, if people would stop dying from smoking black market juice and letting the media get a hold of it, you wouldn't see that kind of shit.
I know the whole
bullshit.
The whole 4 people or 5 people that it happened to.
Right. Well, the problem is those jewel pods, man. They're really expensive, and they're I don't know. I guess they're like $5 for every couple days. It costs just as much as smoking cigarettes. So if you can get them on the street for $2, that's what people were doing, and they're made with a whole bunch of chemicals that have no business being in it, and people were having reactions to them. But the way the media jumped on it is just pretty ridiculous because they make it seem like it's more deadly than tobacco now, and they got to get rid of it. They got to take it out of everywhere.
Yeah, I was actually kind of disappointed too. I saw an ad. I was running on the treadmill, and there was like you could turn a TV on these treadmills.
Right.
And I saw an ad from this like pretty famous magician at the moment. He's not like the shock and awe ones, but just a good magician. And they were doing ads about kids that get on vape will get on cigarettes, so make sure they don't get on vape. And it's like that's like
marijuana is a gateway drug for heroin too, right?
You know what's so funny? Yeah, it's funny because there's a. Did you ever hear of Adam Ruins Everything?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually does one on that most people that smoke marijuana don't even continue smoking marijuana. It's not a gateway drug. It was a lie that actually ended up teaching people that there were other drugs, and the DARE program itself may have actually increased drug usage by letting people know that there was other drugs available.
Mm-hmm.
Like people didn't know about it. Like you weren't going to your weed dealer and all of a sudden finding out that he's got heroin, and you're like, sure, I'll just pop that in there, right?
Right.
Like, that's a huge leap. And it's the same with this vape thing. It's like, yeah, kids definitely should not be doing it, but if they're gonna smoke cigarettes, I certainly would rather them smoke vapes. Like it's so.
Well, as a 20-year smoker and then starting to vape, I could tell you the difference in just after a couple weeks with the stuff starts breaking up in your chest and coming out. It's very. I'm a lot healthier. Not smoking cigarettes. Once all the, I started coughing all the tar out and all that other shit, I was able to run up the stairs faster and, I wasn't so winded all the time. And just my circulation, like I sleep better. It's a lot better. And at this point, I've weaned it off of the nicotine too. So I just hit it, probably once every 15, 20 minutes or whatever, just because of the habit. When you're addicted to nicotine and the cigarettes and everything, it's a physical habit, but it's also a psychological habit. And the vaping, there's nothing wrong with it. If you buy a reputable juice and you have a good tank, you keep your coils clean and everything, you don't get any problems, man. I've been doing it for 5 years. And like I said, I smoked cigarettes for 20. I started when I was really young. And I was having a whole lot of problems because of it, man. I mean, like my asthma was completely, blocking. I was getting sinus infections all the time. I couldn't sleep. I would snore. I just wake up in the morning, I always felt like shit because your circulation is so bad. And, there's just nothing good about smoking cigarettes. And just vaping is a whole different world. So when people start coming at me with that bullshit, I'm just like, dude, I got the experience and I know what's going on here. And I also know how the media likes to lie. And that was something that they jumped on really fast too. And I was like,
it's like 0% chance that big tobacco wasn't paying to put those ads out there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's one of those funny. You ever see the meme where it's like Fred from Scooby-Doo, and he's got the killer, and he's like, well, let's see who this really is. And then they're like vape news, and he pulls off the mask, and there's a Marlboro emblem underneath it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's pretty stupid, but I have people say it to me all the time. It's like, because I'll go out at work on the side of the building and vape for a few minutes when I get stressed out, and people are like, oh, those things are gonna blow up, they're gonna kill you. I'm like, man, go back in the bar and get drunk. Like, it's just ridiculous, dude. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Give me your keys. Right. Now that we've tangented off into promoting vaping.
right.
I think it's good to call the podcast a quit. But before we do, we definitely want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. So where can people find you on the internet?
On Twitter, you can find me at Bloodshed Myers, BLOODSHEDMYERS. On Facebook, my Facebook page is The Open Casket, and all of them have links to my Etsy store where I'm currently selling my comic. I had a website set up for it. I put the cart before the horse, and I had the website set up last year and everything, and my creator actually did it for me. And now the thing has so many bugs in it, I can't get them all out. So I shut it down. So for right now, I'm just distributing it out there for anybody that wants to buy it. In the future, I hope to have it on your site. And also, there's other sites that I've written for, like Attack from Planet B, that's may possibly be putting out a merchandise page too. I'm going to throw it up there.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if Greg's mentioned it, but I built our website. So if you ever want your website back up, definitely.
Sounds like you're the man to see.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of playing the whole thing by ear right now, and my work schedule's pretty crazy, and just trying to take all the free time that I have and donate it to promoting the comics. So that's pretty much what I'm doing. And when you go to my Twitter and stuff, there's links for all my stuff that I've written for other sites and everything. So if anybody out there needs a comic writer, I'm always willing to get into some other project. I will be doing Marvel's The Cat, like we discussed earlier. I'll be doing that in January, but I'm always down for other projects. Another thing that I'm doing, I'm working on this book called The Pandemic Collection, and it's a whole bunch of horror short stories that I've written over the years. I haven't decided if I'm going to publish it as a short story novel or if I'm going to get other writers involved and pay them for their stories and get them all in the book and release it at the same time. I'm going to worry about that once my comic is, once Marvel's The Cat is in production and all that, when I have some downtime, when I'm not really promoting it as hard. But that'll be the next upcoming thing for me.
Very cool. Yeah, you should toss it up on like the Amazon, the Amazon ebooks. Just throw it up.
Yeah, that's something that I'm probably going to take that avenue for it this time. I don't know if I'm going to print it myself or just do it through Amazon yet. I want to keep the costs down, but we'll see. I'm not done with all the stories yet. Writing inside of period pieces seems to be my thing. I like it because when you're writing, either if it's a futuristic piece or a past piece, if it's futuristic, you can create your own universe and your own environment. If you write it in the past, you have a structured environment that you can work within. That's why I liked it. That was one thing that I learned when I wrote Down By Kontact. I wanted to write it as a period piece because at the time I didn't know a whole lot about writing. I didn't know how to develop a character. I didn't know much of anything. I kind of just jumped into it and started doing it. And then as I wrote it and I learned, I started piecing it all together. And it turned out pretty cool. So I'm going to stick with the same formula and, write what I know. And that'll be kind of like my thing. So it'll either be a past or a futuristic period piece. Nothing really in the time we live in now. Besides, this shit's scary enough out here. You don't need to write about now when it comes to horror. So,
well, that's awesome. But, yeah, definitely. Thanks for being on here. We'll cut the feed in just a second, and then we can say our goodbyes after. But yeah, thanks for everyone for joining us.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So we can cut the podcast. But yeah, definitely awesome to talk with you. Glad I got to chat with you. And,
yeah, man, it was fun.
I look forward to a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And then you guys are going to be you'll be off social media for December.
Yep. Yeah. Doing the disappearing December.
Right. Yeah. Keep in touch and let me know what's going on or anything I could do to help. But I think that putting up a merch section in your store, allowing comic creators and other stuff to be on there. Plus, you could sell prints, you could sell posters, you could sell other things that you can get through Ready Comics.
Oh, we actually have a merch section on there. We want to create another section because right at the moment we actually have T-shirts, sweatshirts, posters, and a couple of prints.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we just because that was one of I think we got that set up actually before we got the comic book set up, but we just but we didn't have the prints and posters before. It was just like T-shirts. So now we've got. What was that?
Coffee mug.
Oh yeah, and a coffee mug. Just because I wanted to get a coffee mug because I'm always drinking coffee during these interviews. Nice. I wanted to get one with our logo on it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, dude. I want one because I'm always sucking down coffee when I'm writing. I drink it to the point where it's like, oh my god, my eyes are gonna jump out of my head. I gotta stop. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. I'll have to check them out. But because if you have everything set up like that, I definitely want to move my comic over there and shut down the Etsy store. It's not really a price thing. I'd rather just have it in a more legit spot, with that's why I wanted to develop my own website and everything. But I'm not good at that kind of shit, man. I just don't. It's all full of bugs. The blog crashed. It was just, I try to log in there and navigate through it. I change one thing, the whole thing gets fucked up. Like, it's just not good. So I was like, let me shut it down, see what happens here, and then if I can redo it, man, I guess if you know how to do that kind of stuff, you go to you. You'll probably figure it out in 5 minutes. It'll take me 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and actually, speaking of blogs too, if you enjoy writing blogs, one of the things that we're trying to do is have other creators write on our blog as well, and then where you'll have like an author page, and on that author page you can put whatever links you want on there.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Eventually I want to get it set up so that if you go to an author's page, it'll show their comics, their blogs, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, we just got it started. So there's a couple creators who have written blogs for us. Yeah, definitely. If you enjoy writing blogs and want to get links out there, definitely feel free. Hit up Greg because he's the one that kind of has been handling that. And,
definitely.
We can create you like an author page and then start. I can start getting back into developing the website again.
There you go. Yeah, I could publish a short story up there or something too. If
even that would work too.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Most of the all the short stories I've written are hard, but it's this would be the time of year for it.
Oh, definitely.
A comic creator that's on our website. That's Luke Anderson. He's in Canada. He's actually like the top creator on there right now, and his friend, she has a couple stories on our blog, and they actually are really good.
Nice. Yeah, it's that's something cool for people to read, and then they can come back and return later. If you do it once a week or once a month, depending on how much content I can put out there, that's just another avenue for it instead of it just sitting in my tablet and waiting to be published.
That's kind of what we realize. A lot of creators, they can't get content out as much, so people won't follow their blog. But if we get one place where multiple creators are putting blogs into, then it doesn't need to be as frequent per creator because our site as a whole will have a release schedule. So if we start backlogging the stuff, we can publish it on almost a daily basis if we get enough creators.
Yeah, and when you have a blog, you really got to blog on it every day. Whether you're publishing somebody else's or something, you got to have content going on it every day because of the SEO writing. It doesn't come up in the search fast enough if you don't.
Yep.
Yeah, stuff. You guys got a lot of good stuff going on, man. Looking forward to seeing what else can be done in the new year. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in putting my comic there and having it as its home base. So
if you want to do that, I might just hurry up and create that comic book section where people can just buy comics, because like I said, we got a merchandise section, but we weren't planning on putting comics in it. We wanted to make a comic book store section, so I might get working on that.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's
people can use that Google form that we made for printing comics from Ready Comics. So you could literally use that as a template for that store. So
nice.
Because Ready Comics, their website is kind of trash.
Yeah. The subscription base and everything idea is really awesome. I mean, I know a lot of people were reading my book on there when I started pushing them towards it. If I could push them towards the store, now say you can purchase my comic through Sierra Nova Comics. That sounds a lot better than, hey, check out my Etsy store. And you can see other created content there for free. I just talk about that, and then once they get in there, if they choose to do the subscription base, I mean, it's all about pulling that traffic in there. And like we said before, you get a couple people on there that are exclusively selling their comics to you guys. It makes all of us legit. It just makes it all stronger and better.
Definitely.
So that's good shit.
Next year that we're gonna add a third subscription here because it's a game. So that's gonna bring a lot more people.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna bring more people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's great chatting with you. I actually have to head out. I gotta go get some food.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm on my way there now. All right, see you later, guys. We'll be in touch. Thanks again. Hey, when is this going to be broadcasted or published or whatever? Put up on the site.
Greg?
Halloween.
Oh, Halloween? Okay. All right, I'll keep an eye out for it. Just send me a link.
Okay.
All right, thanks, brother. See you later.
Bye.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'll stop the broadcast.